Hello, my YouTube family. This is the OG Crypto New Jack coming at you with some juicy news. Before I begin, let me say I'm not a financial advisor. Anything you see or hear in this video is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice. Remember to do your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making investment decisions. We're going to begin looking at the total crypto market cap. It is 1.23 trillion. It is down 1.8%. Coming in at number one is Bitcoin at 30,467. Ethereum is coming in at number two at 1,908. And I believe XRP is number 6 at 47 cents. Taking a look at crypto bubbles, it looks like it's mostly a sea of red, and the biggest loser looks like is BitDIO, down 11.9%. The fear and greed index is in greed at 61. Okay, shout out to the digital asset investor, and he writes, Bitcoin is the kill shot in my opinion. And we're going to take a listen to the video from Craig DeWitt.
Say it was odd. I mean, the whole flow is very odd that you'd start out with XRPL as the first port of call that you go to try to essentially kill a crypto company in the United States. When, by some of the own admissions, like there was an ICO at Ethereum. I'm not saying that's bad, but there was. That clearly is something that the SEC believes was a security at some point. My guess, though, if I really think what's going on, I think that there is an effort to actually try to kill crypto within the United States. And my gut, this is just a guess, my gut is that they're following kind of a classic federal regulator approach, and that is divide and conquer. Go after this one, make this one seem okay. Then go after this one, make this one seem okay, and then go for the end kill. I would not be surprised if they eventually sue Ethereum, right? Those folks were cheering when XRP got sued. I imagine they go after Ethereum. And the Bitcoin maximalists are cheering for that right now. And then after they do that, would be surprised if they go after BTC. That's the path that I see.
And that's his opinion. And I put a lot of weight behind his opinion because he used to work for Ripple. He's in the space. He knows a lot of people in government as well. So not that I'm saying that what he said is exactly what's going to happen, but you know what? It's something to think about. Okay, moving on. Shout out to Mr. Hubert. He puts out, of course, HOSKINSON doesn't like the ETHGATE story. Ripple FOIA'd the SEC for information about him. And look at here. All communications with Ethereum Foundation and or other relevant companies, including but not limited to Consensus or individuals in the Ether ecosystem, including but not limited to Vitalik Buterin, Anthony Diario, Charles Hoskinson, and right there's a very good reason why Charles was acting the way he was. Now it all makes sense. Okay, shout out to Anders. He put out, read the tweet about FEDNOW below. Then read these 4 slides by Bob Way in this tweet. And then you will see the larger picture. Don't be a simple mind. And basically, this is what he's talking about. Bob Way states, I'm not sure I can add a lot of insight, but I'm sure things have changed a lot. But just for clarity, the ISO 222 is way bigger than you may think at first. It replaces the previous Swift standard, MT and MX, and adds a lot of other things. The reason this 222 transition is extremely helpful to Ripple's bank sales team is this means that every bank is required to implement new technology. Banks hate to change an already working process. Change can introduce new problems, which means bankers get fired. This is the #1 reason most bank integrations don't happen. New system development is expensive and risky. Mistakes can generate bank losses or fines. Bankers get fired. The person you are negotiating with must have a product budget, development budget, and a risk appetite. With a mandatory 222 change happening, the person you're negotiating with only needs to have a product budget. Money for development has already been allocated elsewhere. Nobody gets fired for following a mandate. This makes the sale a much easier lift for Ripple. That being said, bank software sales is still a hard process, especially with the SEC suit still adding FUD to the process. But even if banks wait for a settlement, their 222 upgraded system become much easier for Ripple to integrate with them. The biggest impact is going to be that even smaller banks are going to be upgrading the systems. That creates a much larger pool of ODL compatible banks. Smaller banks get the most benefit from ODL. It lets them cut the larger correspondent banks out of their flowing costs. And that makes sense because a lot of the small banks just don't have the capital to have and sit in a Nostra Vostra account. So they go to the much bigger banks, which they have to pay a piece of the pie to them for helping them make that payment transfer. So with that out the way, they actually save money. So the smaller banks especially are looking forward to this. Okay, here we have, shout out to Brooks and Twistle. He wrote, good morning, Bangkok. The Ripple crew was out in full force last night, lighting up the front of the W Bangkok as we gear up to host our first Thailand Policy Summit later this morning. Looking forward to an action-packed day of awesome content and discussion in this key market. Okay, moving on. Shout out to Cowboy Crypto. Our decision to put 54 billion XRP into escrow, I'm always behind that. And whether we use that, for example, to fund the lawsuit, if we were threatened and had to draw on that, we certainly would. That is a quote from David Schwartz. I'm going to play the video.
Our decision to put 54 billion XRP into escrow and what was behind that, and whether we would use that, for example, to fund the lawsuit. So we're primarily VC funded. That lets us use our XRP strategically. We don't so much have to use it like a bank account. We can more use it as a strategic tool. Certainly, if we were, if you could imagine, we're going to act in our own interest. If we were threatened and we had to draw on that, we certainly would to protect. That would protect hopefully the space as much as it would protect us. We're going to act in our own interest, but we don't have to draw off that like to pay salaries, or we can be strategic. We can use it to align incentives. Institutional buyers who may buy XRP with a lockup, they have an aligned incentive with us and other people who hold XRP because the future value of XRP is very important to them, and we're able to use it that way. It certainly is also a source of revenue. I'm not saying that's not the case, but I'm saying that that's not all of what's going on. Obviously, we think the price is going. If we succeed, we believe that's going to put upward pressure on the price, and if we fail, well, we're going to fail. If we fail, we fail.
And he explained that very clearly right there. Okay, moving on again with Cowboy Crypto. Email I received from Link2 today regarding Ripple, XRP, and Arrington Capital. There's been a lot of talk about this, that this was old news and stuff like that, but in a way it is, but in a way it isn't. And this is what the Link2 Ripple update put out. Ripple update is not logic coming soon. We wanted to bring you up to speed on a noteworthy update regarding Ripple XRP Arrington Capital, a firm that specializes in investing in digital assets, recently filed for an annual amendment to its XRP-based hedge fund, Arrington Capital, with the SEC. Despite the ongoing lawsuit by the SEC against Ripple, Arrington Capital has retained its fund, whereas other institutional players have avoided XRP. The fund was launched in 2017 before the lawsuit began, and focuses on early-stage startups and public markets. By continuing to engage with XRP and not distancing itself, Arrington Capital seems to be signaling its belief in the cryptocurrency's long-term potential. So basically, this fund has been around since 2017, but they recently filed an annual amendment. I guess it's something that is done every single year, and it's possible that they're doing it at this particular moment because who knows, maybe the lawsuit is getting ready to come to an end. Time will tell. Okay, moving on. Shout out to Mr. Intuitive who put this thing out. There's a Trumors Only tomorrow at 7 p.m. And let me play the video.
What's up, fam? A little brain dead today, but let's get it. Tomorrow, we got an exciting Trumors Only. When Ripple announces an IPO, what happens next? Joe Indoso, COO from Link2, DAI, Kimes, Deaton, Terret, Linda P. Jones, and of course, Ray Fuentes will be joining us. I'm excited.
Okay, and this is what he's talking about. There's a Trumors Only, 7 p.m. Thursday, July 6th. And here we have a Joe Indoso from Link2, and the lineup is going to be Digital Asset Investor, Dick's Perspective, John Dean, Linda P. Jones, Elena Terret, Ray Fuentes. If you can make it, be there. Okay, moving on. Altcoin Daily. The people who are 30 trillion in debt are giving you a credit score. I just thought that was amazing. It kind of makes sense. Like they want to judge you for how you're doing, spending your spending habits, but they're $30 trillion in debt. I mean, it's actually close to 33 trillion, which will be hitting that number soon. Okay, moving on. Bitcoin LFG put this thing out. Breaking. Jim Cramer warns against investing in Bitcoin. This is not financial advice or anything like that, but you know how the inverse Cramer works. It may be a good time for you to look into Bitcoin at this moment. Now that Jim Cramer said he's warning against it. Okay, moving on. Shout out to CoinsKid. He put out this XRP monthly. In 2017, XRP printed a 10 and 20 golden cross. The last time we saw a monthly 10 and 20 EMA golden cross was in 2020. XRP rallied over 720%. If we see another golden cross and a 720% rally sets a new all-time high. My minimal target, if we see the all-time high taken out, is $9 for XRP. And this is what I talked about, the golden cross in 2020 and the golden cross in 2023. So if that does happen and history repeats, we're looking at a $9 minimum for XRP. And that's good to see. Okay, moving on. John Dean put out a thread in regards to Whale Chart's tweet that said Coinbase's chief legal officer overall said the SEC is violating the law. And this is what Mr. John Dean had to say. He said, let's review the facts. Number one, up until 2018, the SEC had no policy whatsoever regarding the SEC staff owning crypto because these digital assets were a new asset class and the SEC was unsure about it. Number two, in 2018, Hinman was drafting his infamous speech discussing digital assets in general and asserting BTC and ETH were not securities Senior officials at SEC acknowledged that crypto assets fell into a regulatory gap, and it was unclear the SEC would even regulate. Number 3, in 2019, the annual FSOC report signed by Jerome Powell, CFTC chair, Treasury Secretary, etc., highlighted the growing market cap of virtual currencies. The report highlighted BTC, ETH, LTC, and XRP. Chairman Klain also signed it without referencing U.S. securities law. So isn't that something? The chair of the SEC that brought the lawsuit against Ripple also signed that report, and he had no problem with all those 4 being labeled virtual currencies. And then he would go on later on to sue Ripple, saying that it was a security. Makes you wonder. But let's continue. Number 4. In early 2021, Gary Gensler, testifying at his confirmation hearing, agreed that this regulatory gap exists and there was no existing regulatory framework for crypto companies as it falls outside of the CFTC and the CEC frameworks. Number 5, there isn't a single case in U.S. history finding that an instrument contract existed between a promoter issuer and a buyer where there exists no privity, communication, or relationship between said promoter and said buyer. Number 6, there isn't a single case in U.S. history finding the secondary sale of an asset once utilized in an investment contract transaction to also constitute an investment contract. The only appellate case involving a secondary sale of an investment contract found otherwise. Number 7, West Virginia versus EPA decision. SCOTUS invoked the major questions doctrine, striking down the EPA's unauthorized expansion of its powers in the clear absence of congressional authority. Number 8, the SCOTUS opinion in Nebraska also cited the major questions doctrine, striking down another agency's unauthorized use of power. Number 9, the Senate and House have proposed legislation dealing with crypto assets and how Congress wants them regulated. The bill takes this regulatory authority out of the SEC's jurisdiction or limits the SEC's role in regulating crypto. One bill wants to fire Chair Gensler. Number 10, even the executive order signed by POTUS seemed to favor the CFTC and not the CEC. Conclusion, I am Paul Garol is not being hyperbolic by claiming Gensler and the SEC are violating the law. The SEC is engaged in an unconstitutional expansion of Howey. It is so absurd of an unconstitutional expansion that it would retroactively make oranges sold by grocery stores securities. And that is a very powerful threat. Thank you, John Deaton. And with John Deaton, we will continue with him. He writes, as bad as Gary Gensler is, he's a bad faith regulator, hard stop. And as much blame he deserves most of it. He is not the only one deserving of criticism. The SEC as an agency has lost its way. Mark is correct. Crypto is one more technology that will succeed or fail on its own. It is here to stay in some form or another, or will the market decide, as it always does? Hester Peirce argued for a safe harbor in 2018, 5 years ago, amid the ICO craze. It was ignored because the agency itself institutionally prefers a lack of clarity and for the law to be vague. The Hinman speech emails proved it. The General Counsel's office recommended for Hinman to not give Ethereum regulatory clarity and not say current sales of Ether are not securities, but not because he or she believed ETH was sufficiently decentralized, or because giving ETH a free pass amounted to regulators picking the winners from the losers. No, the General Counsel said if Hinman gave ETH a regulatory pass, it might limit what the agency could say about ETH in the future. The Hinman emails also show others arguing that Hinman should say less, not more, in order to allow the agency more options in the future. It's all about the agency maintaining maximum prosecutorial options, period. 100% agree. Shout out to Digital Perspectives. He put this thing out where a Ripple Labs Incorporated investor class was granted certification in a cryptocurrency securities lawsuit against Ripple. And he wanted some lawyers to opine, and Jeremy Hogan and Bill Morgan did. Jeremy Hogan responded, said, class certification just means the judge thinks there will be enough plaintiffs that all the claims should be kind of lumped together. It is really a no-brainer here, but it has no effect on the SEC case whatsoever. I'm curious how the SEC case will affect the class action, though. And then Bill Morgan chimed in and said, given res judicata, whatever that means, on substantive issues only applies to the same parties in different proceedings, and leaving aside the persuasive influence of Torres deciding first, we can see the curious result of different findings on the issue of whether Ripple sold or offered securities. Okay, moving on. Shout out to Michael Branch. He wrote, XRP is not a share or stock. It is a utility protocol to tokenize value. There are over 1.2 quadrillion to be tokenized. The derivatives market is 500 trillion alone. XRP, to capture just 10% of one market, is already at 50 trillion. There is also the housing market. And here is, on the article, it says, in a tweet today, Jack the Ripper said XRP changing hands at a whopping $1,000 per unit is peanuts. And you know what? Time will tell. We're going to be moving on. Shout out to Michael Branch. He writes, clients of Singapore Bank, DBS, can now collect payments from customers in ECNY, China's central bank digital currency, CBDC, according to an announcement on Wednesday. And here it says on the bottom, the newly launched merchant collection solution allows businesses automated settlement of ECNY into the CNY bank deposit accounts. And this is Singapore Bank DBS, so it's an ECNY collection platform. And this is very important because in Singapore, if you remember, Ripple got a in-payment license from the Monetary Authority of Singapore. Okay, shout out to Riz XRP. This is what we were just referring to. Ripple on-demand liquidity volumes surging in Asia Pacific. Chat with Ripple policy directors of the APAC, Rahul Avance. And let me play the video.
All right, congratulations on the in-principle approval for a major payment license from the MAS. So tell us, what does this mean for Ripple's operations in Singapore and the Asia Pacific?
It allows us to offer regulated digital payment token products and services, which will enable us to better support and scale the use of on-demand liquidity, or ODL, by our customers in Singapore and across the APAC region, and that are looking to explore blockchain and digital asset technologies for their cross-border payment and treasury use cases. With on-demand liquidity volumes surging in Asia Pacific, we know that there's great appetite from customers in the region to engage and explore with blockchain and digital assets. And this obtaining the in-principle approval of the major payment institution license to better support these progressive customers and scale our ODL services to ultimately build a more inclusive and borderless financial system.
Okay, right. Rahul, so how does Singapore then fit into Ripple's global operations?
Singapore's location makes it a prominent gateway to emerging markets in Southeast Asia, as well as developed markets across the Asia-Pacific region. We're a global business, and we remain hyper-focused on building our teams outside of the US. About 90% of our business is global, and Singapore, and to a large degree, the broader APAC region, is one of our fastest-growing regions and remains high on our list for recruiting.
You know, at the start of the year, there was speculation that Ripple's case with the US SEC will be settled by mid-year. Well, we're here now. Can you give us an update on how the legal case is unfolding?
We continue to push for a speedy resolution, and we look forward to proving that Ripple did not violate securities law and that the SEC never provided Ripple with fair notice that its actions would ever be prohibited under law. The decision and timing is ultimately up to the judge. We don't have any control over that.
All right, congratulations on the in-principle.
Okay, we're going to leave that there and moving on over here. Another good video. Let me play it.
Okay, lastly, Rahul, I got to ask you about this. Ripple acquired digital assets custody from Mitaco for $250 million. It's $250 million US in mid-May. Can you give us an update on how that integration is going and how does it fit into the global strategy for Ripple?
So acquiring Metaco makes Ripple the leading enterprise solution provider in the space. Both Metaco and Ripple share strong, digital asset and crypto DNA. So this is the first of many offerings as we continue to build and invest in crypto infrastructure.
All right, Rahul, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Really.
And once again, shout out to Riz XRP. Okay, moving on. Shout out to the ISO 222 for putting this thing out. He put out a tweet from Mr. Man included, where Mr. Man wrote FIS US RTP and FEDNOW instant capabilities. And ISO 222 put out Ripple plus FIS is what basically makes up FEDNOW. And FIS, if you guys don't know, is Fidelity National Information Services, better known by the abbreviation FIS, is an international provider of financial services, technology, and outsourcing services. Headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, FIS employs more than 55,000 people worldwide. So this is a huge, huge deal, and I just can't wait for all this to get started. Okay, moving on. Shout out to the Black Swan capitalist for this video, where it states Ripple has already secured its position at the very center of the new financial system using XRP. And as you saw from the previous section, things are just falling into place with Ripple being in the helm or in the main position. Let me play the video.
We are really in this massive global competition all over the world for the future of our financial infrastructure. I believe that much of that is going to come from disruptive financial technologies like crypto, like fintech, and the country that captures the talent that's building out these really fascinating financial rails is going to find themselves in the next 3 to 5 years very much at the center of our global financial infrastructure.
I'm really pleased that attention is now focused on the role that cryptos can play.
There are some cryptos
that are working with regulators and are working with
I
banks.
agree.
Ripple
Right.
would be an example.
Ripple would be an
XRP.
example, right.
Now, this is and I can imagine in the next 5 years, instead of us doing sterling against the dollar or sterling against yen and doing these types of transactions, we'll do sterling versus Ripple. And the reason being, dollar right now is a 2-day settlement. It's something like Ripple, you could do settlement in seconds.
We are
Exactly. You heard that. You can do settlement in seconds. And that's what Ripple is bringing to the table. And that's why the others just simply, mainly Swift, cannot compete. You're competing hours, days, and weeks against seconds and for fractions of the cost. So there is no competition. Ripple is second to none. And I can't wait for this thing all to get started. Well, okay, fam, that's going to do it for today's video. If you found this video to be helpful, would you please smash the like and subscribe? I would really appreciate it, and it doesn't cost you anything. Thank you much in advance. And in the words of Snoop Dogg, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind. Peace out, fam.